Could you join me in an opening prayer, please? Our prayer, dear God, is always the same. It is not of us, but through us that your work is done. Dear God, it is not of us, but it is through us that your work is done. Amen. Amen. Normally, I think I would begin this presentation by saying we are in such denial about death in this culture. Because though there were a time when the graveyard was a central part of the town, where we would actually go and sit on the graves and bring flowers, and some of us still do that. It's not that we don't know that. But for most of us, the conversation with death, dying, and the dead is over. The Neanderthals in Iraq, now we're dating 150,000 years ago. The Neanderthal skeletons are covered with pollen. Why would that be? And the thought, of course, that somehow our ancestors knew to cover flowers on the dead, to help the passage into whatever was next. And this is deep in our DNA. And when we have funerals, of course, we want people to remember the life that lived. I think it's critical. The message is really simple today. I will give you lots of facts, but the message is simple. It's time we learn to grieve, and it's time in our ministry to know that we can help others do so. And you're only going to be useful helping somebody else insofar as you've done the work yourself. There is going to be a lot of ash sifting now in the collective. And as ministers, we need to be responsible and available to the necessity to do that Cinderella story, to do that Iron John story, where the principal can only sift ashes for a long period of time without really knowing where we're going. We are lucky in this work because we get to, as we tried to say in that first poem, we get to minister to all the seasons of a life, to hold those newborns, to treasure the relationships that grow, to counsel one another when there's pain and heartbreak. But inevitably, death comes, because death is part of the reality of our living. Show me the manner in which a nation or community cares for its dead. Show me the manner in which a nation or community cares for its dead, and I will measure with mathematical exactness the tender mercies of its people, their respect for the law of the land, and their loyalty to high ideal. Something in human consciousness from the beginning knows to pay homage to the passage from this strange place of life and breath to stillness and absence, of company and then suddenly being lonely. For generations we put coins on the mouths or put objects in the tomb so that the passage into the next world might be accompanied with grace. Here are some archetypal images. The listener. There's a reason we do so much work on listening. And it's not just to hear the chatter and filter the chatter, but to be a present, deep other. The corollary to being a listener is that you become a witness. And they are different. The way that we witness for one another in this room, I mean, you already know how profound an experience it is. There's always somebody who doesn't have a voice or who isn't heard. In funeral work and in grief work, you are called to be witness to the grief, to your own grief, to the sorrows of others. So advocacy becomes part of ministry. We must be poets of the sacred. Poetry comes from that word poesis, which means making. So our job is to make stuff if we're poets. Stop all the clocks, cut off the telephone, prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone, silence the piano, and with muffled drum bring out the coffin. let the mourners come. Let airplanes circle moaning overhead, scribbling on the sky the message, he is dead. Put crepe bows around the white necks of the public doves. Let the traffic policemen wear black cotton gloves. He was my north, my south, my east and west, my working week and my Sunday rest. My noon, my midnight, my talk, my song. I thought that love would last forever. I was wrong. The stars are not wanted now. Put out every one. Pack up the moon and dismantle the sun. Pour away the ocean and sweep up the wood. For nothing now can ever come to any good. That's Auden's poem from the 12 Songs. Grief is what happens internally when we've lost something, someone really dear, when we've lost a job or a loved one, and we're in funeral mode, so when we lost a loved one. What will you do when you're faced with that grief, dear ministers? And we all grieve in our own way, you know this. Some griefs take time, some grief takes lifetimes. I'm trying to say now that mourning is the path to healing grief.